Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today is gonna be a nerve-wracking but really fun day. We are going to attempt to paint match the new front bumper, as well as I've had my side mirrors not matching. This one's just never been painted. So we're gonna try and get everything looking good today. I ran down to a local shop called Space Age and got some steel blue metallic paint match cans, and as well as 2 cans of clear, a can of primer, and a can of plastic adhesive promoter. That being said, it's going to be a bit of a long project. First thing I need to do is prep the bumpers. I'm not going to do any crazy sanding. I'm just going to Scotch Brite them just to scuff them up and rough the surfaces up and make sure I'm pretty thorough with that. And then once that's done, we'll adhesion promoter, prime, and then we'll continue on through the process. But that being said, I'm going to jump to it because this is going to be probably a long drawn out video. So yeah, let's start. Alright, so first we're going to use a Spray Max plastic adhesion promoter. Now that this is all cleaned down, I'm going to tack cloth it first just to make sure that there's no wet underneath. And then after that, we'll go ahead and do the adhesion promoter. And then very shortly after the adhesion promoter tacks up, we're going to go ahead and start on the primer. So bust open the tack cloth and get things going. All right, I think adhesion promoter is done. We're going to let that tack up for a few minutes, and then we're going to go ahead and start priming. All right, so it's the first time I've ever done something like this thoroughly. One thing I think I'll note for when I go back and do the over fenders is I think I'm gonna get more primer. I should have enough to get everything to stick and lay, but I'm gonna be cutting it really, really, really close. But between the adhesion promoter and the primer, I think we'll be fine. I'm just gonna have to play it out and see. So I'm gonna let that tack up for 10 to 15 minutes. We'll go over it one more time, and then at that point, we'll probably give it, I think, 15 to 30 minutes, and then we'll start hitting it with base. The other issue I'm running into that I probably wouldn't run into with a paint gun is the fact that I need to hold the can horizontally instead of vertically for certain angles, and it does make, it stops spraying consistently. So splattering and everything like that. Being that it's just the base, I don't think it's gonna be that big of a deal, but those are what I'm noticing right now. All in all, my main concern is whether or not the finished product looks good. Being that it's just primer coats, I think we're gonna be okay, but I'll see you guys here in a bit. All right, well, I forgot to record it, but I used the rest of the single can. And just in case anybody is planning to do this project for themselves, 1 can of Spray Max 2K epoxy primer gray, not enough to do a whole bumper. Luckily, Nisha is in town right now, so she's going to swing by the paint shop and pick another can or two up for me, so we can get some even coverage on it, and then we should have it all primed. At that point, I will probably hit it with just a light wet sand with 600, just to smooth it all down, and then we'll get the base coat on tonight. So I will check back in with you guys when we have more primer. All right, we're back in the garage. Everybody leave a comment down below and thank Nisha for stopping by the paint shop on her way back in from town to get me a couple more cans of primer. I don't know if I'm gonna need 2 more, but I had her get 2 more just to make sure we had enough to get coverage. That being said, the bumper is right there. It's still a bit patchy, especially the front of it. The problem with spray cans is if you hold them horizontally, they don't spray anymore. So I went ahead and tilted the bumper down, and I have it resting on the top of the Tupperware bin, just so I can get a little bit closer at a more vertical angle and get some more coverage where it's patchy. The bottom is good. I think the top is good. Let's get the front done and make sure that the side mirror and the little plug for the bumper are well coated. And then we'll let that dry up or flash, get another coat on it, and then we'll go from there. All right, so the bumper's drying. It looks a little bit patchy, but that's because there's some really bad orange peel. So I went ahead and wet sanded the mirror while we were at it, just to get rid of some of the orange peel that was on it. And now, I think, since we're waiting for this to dry, I'm just gonna lay a little bit of base coat on this, just so we can jump ahead and see how it's looking. All right, well, I forgot to hit record when I was putting the tack coat down, so we're gonna hit the plug too. And we're just gonna let that kind of flash before we actually lay any real coats on it. Again, the front bumper's still drying. It looks a little bit patchy, but it's just really, really bad orange peel, so I'm gonna be spending some time wet sanding that. Oh well. Okay, back in the garage for another coat on the mirror and the bumper plug. I have a sim competition, like a sim drift competition coming up. So I'm not gonna start wet sanding the front bumper yet, but we'll get to that here in a little bit. Let's go ahead and get the mirror and the bumper plug though coated a little bit more. All right, it's been a little bit. Sim comp went okay. Got knocked out first round, but my third time, and honestly, I drove better than I feel like I've driven in any other sim comp. That being said, we're out here with the bumper. You'll see there's some spots that look darker. There's some pretty bad orange peel in those areas. So what I'm gonna be doing is Scotch Brighting slightly, like ever so gently, most of it, and then the parts that are darker where the orange peel is a lot more prevalent, I'm gonna wet sand with like 6 and 800, just to kind of take them down a little bit so they're not quite as rough to show through the paint. And then once we're done with that, we'll clean it all down again, tack cloth it again, and then we'll get to laying the base coat. So let's jump into it because this is gonna take a little while, I think. Okay, well, time to kind of clean up, and we're gonna start laying the base coat. The first one, we're just gonna go super light so it tacks up, and then we'll go from there. Okay, well, we got the first layer of base coat on it. Unfortunately, the tack cloth that I use, or maybe it's just the orange peel in the primer, pulled fibers off of the tack cloth. So now you gotta go along with it with a roll of tape and pull those fibers out of the paint. Awesome. All right, crisis averted, time to lay another coat. Okay, I've used almost all my paint, and I'm running into a bit of an issue. I'm a little bit nervous. I'll show you guys what I'm talking about. So 4 coats, there's some extremely patchy areas in the base coat. And my problem is if I just go ahead and throw clear coat at it, well, it's only going to accentuate those issues. That being said, it's also a drift car, so I'm not necessarily wanting to strip the entire bumper all the way down again. I just want it to look good enough to pass, right? So that being said, I'm going to take a little bit of a risk here. I'm going to wet sand down the worst areas, throw a flash coat or a quick coat on top of those areas again, so that way there's no sanding streaks. I'm going to use a very high grit, non-aggressive sandpaper, just to try and even it out a little bit and make it not so bad, and really hope for the best. Thinking I'm going to do 1000 grit, and we'll just kind of go from there. But all of a sudden I'm slowly losing confidence. I just have to keep reminding myself this is a learning process. I've never done this before, and well, as with everything that you've never done before, you're bound to make mistakes and you got to learn from them. So I'm gonna jump into that. I'm gonna wet sand the really nasty high spots, and I'm gonna really hope that I have enough base to cover those back up. Okay, so I've wet sanded the really bad problem areas. The big problem is that I didn't have a hell of a lot of base left to repaint things, so I had to be very careful with how much I actually sanded. At this point, this is where we're sitting. I don't know if you guys can see on camera, it's still pretty patchy and rough, but at this point, I've kind of just decided what's the worst that can happen. The worst that's gonna happen is that I put some clear on it, it doesn't look good, and I spend another weekend sanding it down a little bit and putting in a flat layer of base on it. So that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna pop a clear coat can. We're gonna at least start laying the clear coat on, and we'll see how it looks. And worst comes to worst, we sand it down back to the base, maybe even back down to primer, and we try again. But let's jump to it and see. We're learning here. This is all a new experience for me, so let's see how it goes. All right. What's that, 4 or 5 coats? Yeah. I think I have 4, huh? 4 coats on the bumper, 3 coats on the side mirror and the little plug for the bumper. It looks okay. It's not perfect, but it looks a lot better than it did before the clear. That being said, we won't know how good or truly bad it looks until tomorrow when we get into sun, but you guys can see a little bit, some dark spots, some textured spots. I did 4 coats tonight, so I can hopefully do 1 or 2 more coats tomorrow and get a nice build of clear so I can wet sand it and at least get the finished surface as smooth as possible. So as of right now, I'm gonna go ahead and set this up to dry. Pull the car back in the garage after pulling up the plastic, and we're gonna go inside and relax for the rest of the night. And I'll check back in with you guys tomorrow. See you then. Good morning, everybody. Well, it's a new day. We'll start with the good news. Good news is the side mirror cover turned out really great. I am definitely gonna wet sand it with like 1,000, 2,000, or 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 grit, just to really like get a nice polish on it. And then I'll probably end up buffing it, but looks really good as is. The bumper, on the other hand, I'm not entirely enthused about. And I'll get it out. I'm gonna probably just slide it on the car just to show you guys what I'm talking about. All right, so I got the mirror and the bumper back on the car, and so I was pretty disappointed when I started recording this morning, just because it looks super patchy looking down on it from above. But now that I have it on the car, I'll say this, it doesn't look pretty. It's not perfect, it's not great even, it's not especially good even. But it's not black anymore. The color matches. I'm having a hard time just not saying it's good enough. I don't need the car to look pretty. I'm gonna hit cones and shit with the bumper, so it's gonna get fucked up. And honestly, from far enough away and on camera, it's not the easiest thing to see. You can still see some patchy spots like right under the grill and everything, but it's not. It bothers me, but it doesn't at the same time. Now here's the thing. I do need to do the over fenders too. So I think my course of action for the bumper is to, when that time comes, wet sand a little bit on the clear coat. And then when I clear the overs, I can clear the front bumper again, do like 1 or 2 more coats, really glass it on. And then that gives me a lot of product to wet sand, buff and polish. That should at least eliminate some of the rough spots in the clear coat. And then I can kind of just ignore the slightly darker spots from where the primer orange peeled up. And that's also to say I'm also planning on putting a lip on the car here soon. And then once everything's painted, we're going to look at doing a livery, so I can kind of factor in some design choices with the livery to mask a shoddy paint job. Again, my first time painting, so I mean, it's certainly could have come out worse, right? The sides of the bumper are definitely patchy, like in here. I don't even know if the camera will pick up on it. It does a little bit. But I think what I'm going to do right now, honestly, I'm going to pull the bumper back off. I'm going to put the quick release latches on it and put like the grill back in. I'm not going to put the fog light covers in yet, just because those kind of snap past the paint, and I want to give the clear coat some time to cure a little bit. And then we'll throw it back on the car with the grill in. I feel like that's going to distract the eye from it even more. And we'll see how that goes. Then we're just going to let the bumper cure for a little bit. So then after that, I just need to clean the garage because my garage floor is dusty as all hell. All right, so got the grill in and the quick release is back on. Definitely has its good angles and it definitely has its bad angles, but at this point, I'm not going to stress myself out about it too much. We are planning to do a livery, so a lot of the imperfections are going to be covered up by that. So at this point, now it's time to clean up the mess I made and see if I can vacuum up some of this dust. If that doesn't work, I'm just going to be sweeping for a little bit. So not super exciting. I'm not going to make you guys watch that. I'll be right back with you shortly. All right, well, cleaned up the garage about as much as I'm going to get it clean today. I had to pull some weeds and do some housekeeping items. But the car is back in the garage. And honestly, it's not terrible, dude. Like, it is terrible. Like, if you're a painter and you look at it closer than 10 feet away, it's going to drive you fucking nuts. But to me, on camera, it doesn't look all that bad. And honestly, that's all I really want. When the car is 40, 50 miles an hour and sideways, I don't think you're really going to notice how patchy it is. And like I said earlier, I am putting in an order for a front lip, which will cover up a decent amount of the imperfections on the bottom of the bumper. And then the rest of the little imperfections most likely are going to get covered up by whatever livery I end up putting on the car, because while I do like clean, straight, painted drift cars, I personally really like the styling of having a livery on your car. Not so much the brands, but just art on the car. I think it speaks a lot more to your personality and everything. So I do plan on doing that within the next year. So I'm not too upset. Now, coming up shortly, we're gonna have to paint the overs too, just to make sure that the car all matches. Like I said in the last video, we're gonna be deleting the sunroof, so we're gonna be color matching that. So I have a lot more painting coming up, and this time I definitely feel like I learned something. It is not easy, but I feel like the lessons I learned doing the bumper are going to translate really well into doing the overs and the sunroof. Sunroof's getting paint matched. The lip and the roof spoiler are going to be done in black just to have a little bit of offset. So those will be really straightforward. But yeah, I'm happier with it now than I was last night or this morning when I was just seeing it off of the car. Seeing it out in the sunlight and seeing it on the car, what it looks like mounted, definitely helps. That being said, again, not a painter. This is all a completely new experience. I'm learning. This is the fun part, and this is why I started the channel, is that I'm just a normal dude. I'm learning new things every single time I go out into the garage. I'm trying new things, and that's why I like doing this, is because you guys get to see me struggle just like anybody else would in the garage, right? So I appreciate you guys tuning in and kind of watching me struggle with new things, because it's just fun to learn. If you guys enjoy watching this kind of content and enjoy watching somebody just like you figure things out just like you're going to or you have, hit a thumbs up. Leave a comment. More stuff for me to learn always, and it always helps when people leave comments and let me know what kind of things they'd like to see me do. And if you're not yet, hit subscribe. It definitely helps the channel. And without further ado, this is the end of the video. So hope you guys all are having a great week. I will see you guys on the next one. And as always, until then, be easy. Peace.